And two tremendous guests for our next discussion, next interview. First, we have, of course, Crysanthie Dori from Medidata, who leads up data sciences at Medidata, which, of course, for those of you who don't know, if you're from the provider side, perhaps, or the health plan side, Medidata is the world's leading clinical trial software company and has about 70% of the clinical trials running through their servers. And again, based in New York City, again, New York City Digital Health Hub, just throwing it out there. And then, of course, we have Joanne Waters from Information Mediary Corporation, the leading digital health technology platform for medication adherence. And looking forward to this conversation. Chrysanthie, Joanne.
Thank you, Stan. Very nice to be here. Very nice to meet you. And I'm welcoming the conversation we're going to have over these next 15 minutes. I have been working in innovative technologies for well over 25 years. The last 17 of those have been in healthcare, monitoring adherence through smart packaging and digital solutions. And I'm very excited to be hearing about our AI and data science discussion here.
Hi, I'm Crysanthie Dori. I led technology in many different companies, currently at Medidata for the last 2 years. I've been on the sponsor side as well for 8 years in clinical data science and analytics, dealing with the diverse data sources. At Medidata, we have 26,000 clinical trials we had done. 70% of the global clinical trials are passing through our platform, and we really deal with 8 million patients in population. Pleasure to meet you.
Yeah, thank you. So in case some of you are not familiar with what it is that we do and how it connects with Medidata, is we are start with the very basics of smart packaging designs for a clinical trial sponsor, for an investigational medicinal product, or a product that is going to be required to understand adherence and how patients take medicine. So we do that through smart packaging that actually will record through a printed sensor or an optical sensor in a pill bottle or a blister card that will detect the dose removal with the date and a real world timestamp, and as well the dose location as well as temperature. So these objective timestamps are critical into the insights that help research teams and drug development teams understand how patients dose when they're not in front of you or when they're not at the clinic, and when they leave the clinic and go home. We provide objective adherence data to help feed into systems like the Medidata platforms and other research teams around through clinical trials and drug development. So that's smart packaging at a very generic level, but that'll give you an idea of how the conversation will go and how those timestamps can really help the AI algorithm process and the strategies that clinical trial supply teams and clinical operations will benefit from using such a combined system.
Yes, and we deal a lot of different data sources that we can see actually the modern clinical data management domain. If we look at it, we have various stakeholders with different priorities, and introducing technology in all of those proposes different challenges. So if we are on the site has different EDC solutions. They look at two-factor authentication. They care about the compliance and security of patient data. They also receive electronic health records. If we look at the patient population, they're looking of precision in medicine. The same with regulators and payers. They're looking for value differentiating treatment solutions and precision associated with that. There is a patient-centric approach overall in the healthcare system, which moves us to decentralized clinical trials, which means now we have to deal with electronic consent, patient-reported outcomes for be able to collect subjective data. We have imaging data that are coming that we have to deal with. We have sensor data taking vital signs. We saw teledoc here presentations. We have medication adherence data. All of these data streams that are coming they pose so many different challenges for all the stakeholders and the different engagements. And even if we look at the CRO, because most of our clients are major pharma companies, they are CROs, they are biotechs, each of them has different challenges. We heard a lot about the sponsors and what we said about medication adherence. Do the patients took the drug and all of that? But we look also at the CROs. CROs have to deal with different URLs, different processes, different technologies. The turnaround time through the vaccine trials, we saw that during the COVID-19 pandemic, are squeezed now. And now we even see mid-sized companies who do vaccination trials wanting to do interim locking. The minute they see the endpoint that they want to submit to the FDA, they want to lock and submit the data. So there are a lot of different challenges.
Yeah, it's we as a company, we've been providing these solutions for over 20 years, actually. And so as the world has become more digitalized, we have been the leaders in the forefront, the leaders of that, where it comes to decentralized trials, remote monitoring. So you can actually have a more diverse population base and have a better outreach for that. In the data side is interesting, because what happens is this: the adherence data that people can see today have never seen before, and it's clean data to help with the data collection and the data analysis. So it actually can really benefit teams like Medidata, where they get this data source, and it's such a solid piece of data, reliable objective data, that they can focus on different types of analyses when they have this type of data. So you could actually take, if you have different sites across the globe, and you can see adherence rates based on that patient population, and try to understand why that patient population is, either doing poorly or trending down or trending up when it comes to adherence in the analytics. And all that data is happening in real time. So this, you talk about a delay in that, but this is something that can really advance that analysis. And then with the AI, feed that through and really help to bring it quicker to the FDA, to the lock, to the drug approvals, and to better health outcomes for the patients.
Yes, and this feeds into Medidata's objective to create what we call the patient 360 view. Be able to integrate electronic health records, be able to, through tokenization, be able to integrate real world data with the clinical trial data. We also work a lot around integrated evidence, where we have synthetic controls from 26,000 trials across 7 million patients. So instead of having a control arm now, sponsors can use this synthetic control data to bring the data to the market much faster. And there are a lot of challenges, as you mentioned, bringing the raw data all together in the stream, have the right technology platform where you can scale, you can aggregate the data, transform them in common models. And we heard before someone saying, fall in love with the problem, not with a solution. The question always around AI is, what problem are we trying to solve? What question are we solving? What question do we need an answer for? And there are a lot of challenges around that. And we know in different stakeholders, like the sponsors, there are a lot of different technologies that they are not talking with each other. They're not integrating together. They are more from different vendors and legacies. So having this different cross-study data to be able to populate your clinical trials, bringing electronic health records, adherence data around medications, be able to transform those, but provide real outcomes, analytics, it's the key, I think.
Yeah, I think it is the data side of it is the power of the data and how you analyze that data and understanding the validity of the data for certain, and how patients are actually doing what you would hope they would do, but they actually don't. And that is the type of data that will power any type of clinical trial. when you talk about the workload of the site, the clinical staff, when they have so much work to do, they do a lot of, double entry, manual entry. So it's a risk there, of course, of errors and these types of things that happen. For drug accountability and reconciliation, which is a big cost in a clinical trial, right? Trying to get down to either a kit level to figure out where the kits are, how many were used, all of this. When you use smart packaging solutions, each one of those has a unique identifier for like traceability, for that sort of thing. So you can trace right down to the last pill by simple tap, and then feed that data into these systems. And then that gives them more power and also more other areas of opportunity to focus on using these types of data to really understand the patient. And again, bringing the patient, the center of the patient closer, remotely, but closer, through these technologies where it's empowering the patient and also providing wonderful data and easy data for the CRO and the sites and the sponsors. So,
yeah. So some of the challenges usually are ingestion of all this data, because each of them has different granularity. Some of them are coming already aggregated. Some of them are coming extracted once a day on the sponsor side. Some of them are coming raw. Then you really have to integrate them, transform them, put them in a common data model, and have intelligent approaches. Not every data point has the same value. We have to be able to have risk-based data management to understand which are the important data checks to focus and which ones are not. And we have to be able to show outcomes and visualizations of the data that are based on user workflows. Who is our user that wants to be able to look at these outcomes and make judgment calls? Is it a CRA? Is it a medical monitor? Is it a data manager who wants to do clinical data management review or clinical data review? All of this is very important. But as I mentioned, there is also the fact that even if we get all that data, in order to transform them, bring them in the stream, we're going to see duplicate data. So there is significant data cleaning, data modeling, data transformation, and then the visualization portion.
It's an interesting point on that is what we've seen is something called deblistering. So as an example, a patient can go home and they have, let's say, three packs of 10 doses each. So they have 30 doses in total. So we see some of what the deblistering is, where a patient literally pushes out every pill when they get home, and we don't know what they're doing with it, right? So when you're having an investigational new drug, you have to be concerned about the stability of the product, worried about ingestion and that sort of thing. So we want to make sure that it's safe for the patient once it gets out of that safe thermoform blister. And so we see they punch out every one of those. And if it's a titrated product, then it's a risk to the patient. So this is the type of data that can help with patient safety at the sites. When they see this type of behavior happening, it's an opportunity for education. And it's also an opportunity to help the patients understand why it's so important to take medicine as they should and as prescribed for their betterment of their health. Yeah.
And this is really easing the burden, keeping the patient conformant to the drug and the therapy. And when we talk about patient-centric approaches, this is one of them. We talk a lot about decentralized clinical trials, and we see now that only 30% of the data are going through EDC. The rest of them are going to be around digital health technologies in the future, because we really need to reach patient population which is more remote and remove the bias from the clinical trials. And that brings us the opportunity to do so. And what you described here about medication adherence and raw data and data cleaning is very similar what happens with sensors also. In the course of decentralized clinical trials, we want to be able to have objective and subjective data. And what we call objective data is, I'm a patient, I want to tell how I feel during the course of my day. let's say I'm a heart failure patient. Did I exercise today? How many steps did I go through? At the same time, I have to have, apart from the objective data, subjective data that shows the steps, shows the bouts. I can have electronic health records and real world data or data from patient registries. So now I have a wealth of information to build more of a personalized care, phenotyping the patient as opposed to be under a clinical trial with a patient population that it's not fit for all.
Yeah, that's the exciting part. And it is something that with using smart packaging data, the efficacy of the data, the strength of the data, and what it can do for the patients is something that is critical for clinical trials and drug development, as well as, perhaps very interesting with Walgreens that they'll be participating in clinical trials, which makes total sense, right? They're right around the corner pharmacy, easy for the patients to access and go from there. So I think AI is there. It's not going anywhere. I think how we work with AI and when we can integrate such things as smart packaging solutions as another layer, a very critical, important layer to feed into, the wearable data, the other types of data will be a solution that a lot of the pharma will be, and are using to help along with the drug development and get those drugs out that work and that will help cure the patients who need them.
And of course, privacy, security, and compliance is at utmost importance and storage. We heard about the FDA guidelines. We hear about EMEA, access to patient data. All of that is very important, and scalability, of course.
Yes, yeah, absolutely.